For the first time, a federal judge has cited the House January the 6th Committee's final report since it was made public last week, indicating that then-President Donald Trump's remarks on January the 6th of 2021, telling a crowd to, quote, fight like hell before the Capitol attack, may suggest Trump was asking them to break the law. In a court order in the case against January 6th defendant Alexander Shepard, U.S. District Judge John Bates ruled that Shepard could not raise the so-called public authority defense at trial, after his lawyer argued Trump had authorized his client's actions at the Capitol that day. Judge Bates, a George W. Bush appointee, rejected the defense, writing that Trump did not tell the crowd that entering the Capitol or impeding the certification of the electoral vote was lawful. In a footnote, Judge Bates noted that his ruling was not out of step with the January the 6th Committee's final report, which concluded that Trump acted, quote, corruptly because he knew stopping the certification was unlawful. Joining us now, NBC News Justice reporter Ryan Riley. Ryan, unpack this for us, because it's a little complicated for people to follow, certainly for me to follow anyway.
Yeah, so essentially the public authority defense has been, it's come up in history before, but essentially what it means is that someone in the authority to do so was telling you that something was legal. So, take an example of this. If you were told that, okay, you can't protest here, but you can go protest in that park across the street, and then, you were arrested for that after you were instructed to do that. It's essentially an entrapment defense, or telling you something that was legal that wasn't. So, it came up in regards before with a break into a psychiatrist's office, in regards to the Pentagon Papers historically. It's been raised in numerous issues where essentially the argument is that someone with authority in the executive branch perhaps instructed you that you were able to do something and you relied upon that this behavior wasn't criminal. Now, essentially what this ruling says is that Donald Trump never explicitly said that to defendants. He never said that storming the Capitol is now legal. We won't prosecute you, right? If he had said something like that, this would be a much more different case. But, he wasn't that over the top with his language. But the judge also doesn't sort of let, I think, Trump off the hook with responsibility for what he did say, and sort of indicates that there's a suggestion in Trump's speech, despite his language, that he wants them to do more than just go over and, hold up a sign outside the barriers that had been set up around the Capitol, because that's certainly, I think, like what a lot of people have read into that, right? Fight like hell doesn't sound like go there and, hold up your sign outside the barriers and, shucks, if we don't stop the steal, quote unquote, then we're just all going to pack up and go home. That's not really what Donald Trump seemed to be suggesting in this in his speech. But he wasn't explicit about in regards to this case. He wasn't explicit about saying that this is now legal. You can do this. You can shatter windows. You can break into the Capitol and chase lawmakers off the floor of the Senate and the House.
So, Ryan, talk to us a little bit about the template or precedent this might set going forward. There are still a lot of January 6 trials to come. And also talk to us about the significance that we were talking about this morning about how the January 6 committee report has been cited now in legal proceedings.
Yeah, I mean, the Proud Boys trial is the one that I'm really watching for, because they're doing jury selection for that right now. And there were a number of these transcripts that they've come out that are related to that. So I think that it's definitely going to have an impact in terms of the transcripts as well as the report in general. I think that, the judge just wanted to sort of make sure that and remember, he's a Bush appointed judge, wanted to make sure that he wasn't saying that this isn't true, right? He wasn't knocking down what the committee had said. The committee's report essentially said that Donald Trump had this intent. Now, that's it's much different for Congress to say that in a report than it is for prosecutors to go forward. And we should, definitely note that it's still a very challenging case that would be really unprecedented were the Justice Department to go forward with some sort of charges against Donald Trump in connection with January 6th. It's just not an easy layup. There's no really obvious criminal statute that applies to this conduct, especially with the First Amendment considerations you take into consideration if you were talking about, say, if you wanted to charge him with incitement. Incitement is one of those really difficult areas where a lot of these cases in terms of incitement have really run into some legal challenges during the appeals process, just because there are such First Amendment barriers. And a lot of what Donald Trump said during that speech is, pretty thoroughly protected by the First Amendment. But, I do think that it just shows that the January 6th committee's report is having an impact on this process. It's certainly something that the Justice Department is going to be sort of bringing into their prosecution, as well as judges, I think, are they're certainly reading through this themselves and recognize that the broader scope of what's happening with the January 6th committee and their final report here. And the thing I'm kind of wondering about is we were promised a lot of transcripts, and we only have a few more days left before they do. Right now, I think they've released about 100, a little bit over 100 transcripts, but really we've got a lot more transcripts to come, some of which could have really big implications on some of these ongoing cases and ongoing trials, as we have about 900 right now, but the total scope of this could ultimately be 3,000, especially with the new resources that are being brought in as a result of the omnibus bill.